to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I wanted to dedicate an episode to the use of quantum healing codes and Grabovoi numbers and sacred numbers in the use of manifestation and understanding how to shift realities. I have discussed this briefly in my episode on art magic, where I went into detail because I used Grabovoi numbers and quantum healing codes embedded in my paintings. After I had posted that episode and started posting some of my affirmations, including those healing codes, I started to get some messages and comments on Facebook and on Instagram questioning the validity of using different numerical codes. So I wanted to dedicate an episode where we can talk about using number codes in manifestation, how they work, what their power is, and why I'm using them. The number one power behind everything is the one source, is God, is you. None of this denies that in any way, shape, or form. But numbers are important. I am not mathematically inclined, so there's a portion of me that resists the use of numbers. When people use numbers or numerology, I always naturally resist it because it kind of goes against my own personality. I don't want to be a number. I don't want the world to be numbers, but it's undeniable. Numbers make us human. Life would be impersonal without numbers. Numbers tell us our age, our height, our size, our address, our phone details, our health, our paid portfolio, our performance, our track record, our anniversaries, our appointments. Overall, some very personal things, yet reducing everything to numbers makes it all so impersonal. Yes, we seem to have a love-hate relationship with numbers. We memorize numbers, we quote numbers, we calculate numbers. My least favorite class in school was math. We also want to run away from numbers on our bills, race against numbers on our clocks, fight against numbers of passing years on our calendars. I just turned 50, but really I only turned 30. It's a mistake. And sometimes ignore numbers on our evaluations or report cards. I didn't get an F in that class. But I want to tell you why we cannot ignore numbers for too long. Creatures in the animal kingdom can do it, but we can't. For one simple reason. Numbers make us divine. Numbers don't make us God, but numbers elevate us above the animal kingdom and connect us to an intelligent creator who knows the future. Dr. Peter Pleitcha explained it in this way in God's Secret Formula. It was a decisive mistake that science began to interpret numbers as a human invention approximately 100 years ago, just so that mysticism could be expelled from science and mathematics. In this way, God was also expelled from nature. There is a divine structural plan behind this world. Now I'm going to say that again. There is a divine structural plan behind this world. If you want to create your reality, and as we're getting better and better about this, suddenly it becomes a part of your awareness that you have an infinite number of realities to choose from. In the vast infinite multiverse, you can shift into any reality that you want. And at the beginning of this process, when you learn the law of attraction or reality creation, there's a numerically small number of realities you begin to experiment creating. You'll imagine a world of prosperity, a world of greater health, a world where you find love, a world where you find some level of spiritual enlightenment. That is a limited number of realities. As we understand, when we observe nature, as you go into the observance of any category, there are infinite levels to it. So when we talk about prosperity, what kind of prosperity? There are an infinite number of prosperities that are available to you. When we talk about health, what kind of health? What specific kind of health are you seeking? When we talk about love, what kind of love? Unfortunately, the universe is categorized in a number of ways, and I found it powerful when I started to look at specific numbers that are related to different realities. One thing that we've talked about a lot on this podcast is the idea of the universal mind. Our mind exists within a larger mind. That mind has access to everyone's mind at the same time. If there's 20 people that have integrated the number 444 with a luxurious and pleasurable reality, then when you focus on that number, somewhere deep in your subconscious mind, you're aware that the 444 is linked to that beautiful reality. And you also have access to everyone that experienced that reality. There are a number of different systems that have come out that use numbers to quantify different modalities. Numbers that quantify prosperity, wealth, health, and are very specific regarding certain organs of the body and certain very specific functions of business. And the more I researched this, the more I found a vast treasure trove of numbers. The number codes that most of you may have heard of to begin with are the Grabavoy numbers, but there are many more, and there are many that I can discuss in this episode. We have the Grabavoy numbers, we have the quantum healing codes, we have the sacred codes, and in addition to that, there are the divine codes, there are the light codes, the golden codes of Shambhala. All of these things have power. As we understand, we access the universal mind. And if people have linked numbers to realities, when we link to that number, we get a closer realization of the exact reality that we want. So let me go back and talk a little bit about some of the background behind some of these number systems. Grigori Grabavoy is the first one that you might have heard of. Grigori Grabavoy was a doctor of physical and mathematical sciences, an academic, the author of the discovery of creating a field of information and original works on the forecasting of future events, their control, correction. He is the author of the teachings about salvation and harmonious development. In 1986, he graduated from Tashkent State University, majoring in mechanics. And after graduating from the university, Grabavoy worked at the Design Bureau of the city of Tashkent. It was a subsidiary of the Moscow Ministry. And in 1991 through 92, for the first time in the world, on official and scientific basis, Grabavoy, on the instructions of the management of the national airlines of Uzbekistan, carried out more than 360 forecasts on diagnostics of the state of aeronautical engineering, with 100% convergence of forecasts with the facts and rigid working conditions of operations of the aircraft. From January 7th, 93 to September 93, Grabavoy worked as an expert in the Center of Information and Computing Services of the National Airlines of Republic of Uzbekistan, where he continued to use his extrasensory diagnostics. In 94, he traveled to India, to Chatpur Temple, where His Holiness Sri Sant Baba Nakpal Ji blessed him and prayed for him, and also predicted that Grabavoy would use his high energy and psychic abilities through his control protocols for the benefit of people. On October 27, 95, the great Bulgarian seer Baba Vanga, after a 15-minute conversation with Grabavoy, predicted that within 20 years he would achieve everything he had planned and would put into practice his system of nuclear and environmental safety all over the planet. There are articles that question Grabavoy's experience and also say that he's neither a doctor of science nor a professor. And clearly, Grabavoy's success got to his head. There's a 2004 video where you can find him saying that he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. And he sort of got in trouble because after this terrible school shooting, he had gone and promised that he could help revitalize many of these kids by using these numbers. So the point is, any of these systems could have been created by somebody that is not dependable or trustworthy. Grabavoy, for the majority of these numbers, used a radionic machine and came up with the numbers linked to certain ideas and cataloged these numbers. There are people that say that Grabavoy's conviction, because he was convicted by saying that he had offered these false programs to people. Some people say that it was a setup, that the Russian government was going after him. Who knows? I have no idea. There is a legitimate argument that can be made that Grabavoy is not a credible scientist. But the bottom line is the numbers that Grabavoy has used have found success for many people, and it is a large system of documentation used for a variety of different subjects. The numbers that he has provided is exhaustive, and there are so many books that link numbers to a variety of different ideas. For instance, you can get a book that is super fascinating on successful business, and he has marketing services, a specific number code, owning equity, property, objective specialization, specifications, a lot of very specific portions of the business experience are coded through this system. People have tried these numbers in a variety of different ways. There's a variety of different ways they use them. They write them on water bottles, they write them on their hand, they focus on the number, and there are a number of different ways that people say to use these numbers. The bottom line is, it's a good starting point because these numbers have been used to link to a variety of different systems of providing health, love, prosperity, and spiritual enlightenment. All of it is available through these numbers. So what I found myself doing is, in particular with art, I would create art and I would write an affirmation, but sometimes there's a very specific form of energy or idea that I wanted to catalog into the art. So I would want to put a number behind it, and I would find numerical links among the Grabavoy numbers, among the quantum healing codes, among the sacred codes. We're talking about the Grabavoy codes to begin with. So it is a system that has been used to identify different forms, and people have utilized these numbers and have had success. I've had success with it. The second really interesting system that I totally recommend that you look into is quantum healing codes. Quantum healing codes can be found by looking up a document. Simply look up quantum healing codes and how to use them. It's a 59-page PDF that's freely available on the internet. You can also look at a video created by Your Universe where they detail each of the codes and read the document. It is very well done, and it has more than enough information for you to find it. I'll try to put a link in the description so you can find that particular video. In particular, the divine healing codes are described as a quantum tool used for healing. They change reality on a quantum level. The basic premise of divine healing codes is that numbers are nature's way of communicating and that everything can be explained with numbers. For example, the Fibonacci sequence of numbers is a geometrical proportion that is found everywhere in nature, from how flowers grow to the shape of the universe. Going back to our original discussion about numbers, the thing I had realized in my understanding of the universe that I needed to embrace and understand is the power of numbers. The more I started to analyze it, the more I started to see that our God-invented numbers repeats beautiful patterns and likes to work in cycles. God is into patterns and prophecy. The Bible, his book, is the premier book about numbers in the future. Many numbers recorded in the Bible are only beginning to make sense now. Numbers keep us honest. We may say we're watching our weight, but the number of pounds on the scale don't lie. We may feel we put a lot of effort in our work and deserve the promotion, but our sales figures show our true performance. Every handwritten Torah scroll contains 79,847 words, or 304,805 Hebrew letters. They actually count the number of words and the letters before sanctioning every copy. Not only every Jewish scribe's meticulous in counting the total numbers of words and letters, they also counted the number of each individual letter of the Aleph Bet. The first letter Aleph appears 27,057 times in the Torah. The second letter Bet appears 16,344 times. But you can see the effect of numbers everywhere. It is a part of our universe. I have to accept it, even though I don't like numbers. If you were to look at the seeds in the center of a sunflower, you would see that it appears as a spiral pattern curving left and right. If you were to count these spirals, your total will always be a Fibonacci number. You can also decipher spiral patterns that reflect the Fibonacci sequence in pine cones, fruits, and vegetables such as pineapples and cauliflower, trees, sea life with honeybee colonies, and even in humans. If you were to look at yourself in the mirror, you would see that most of your body parts follow the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5. 1 nose, 2 eyes, 3 segments to each limb, 5 fingers and toes. The proportions and measurements of the human body can also be divided up in terms of the golden ratio, and DNA molecules follow this cycle, measuring 34 angstroms long and 21 angstroms wide for each full cycle of the double helix. This ratio exists because this particular growth pattern associated evolved as the most effective. For example, in plants, it may mean maximum exposure for light or maximum space for seed arrangement. So you may see how nature has perfectly designed itself. And if we were to tap into these quantum healing codes and use them to our advantage, we may also be able to perfectly design our bodies and mental states. Although we understand communication through words, numbers, mathematics, and formulas have existed since the beginning of time, and they will keep existing whether we understand them or not. The quantum healing codes that I was talking about were created and written by Mark Gamma and Isabel Henn. They're the first originators of the codes. All documents pertaining to their discovery are listed in the references at the bottom of the page of the original document. At the end of the document, it is implied that these numbers came through channelings. And the author of the document, Reiki Doc, says the majority of the divine healing codes have come through me, about 95% of them. At the beginning it was slow, and I checked them for accuracy with Isabel. Now they come directly through. It amazes me with wonder that there has never in all these years been a duplicate of a code. I cross-check every new one against the list. It's lengthy, and spirit is without fail 100% of the time. So it's implied that the quantum healing codes are provided through channelings of angels in this age for us to do everything from get rid of unwanted pests, for electric equipment, for colic, for West Nile virus, for your pets, for your canines, to opening up a new earth portal. So I started to add Grabavoy codes and quantum healing codes into my paintings, and I found that they were more powerful. I found that by integrating these things, it helped me to isolate and identify the affirmations I was doing and really clarify the intention of the affirmation underlying it. I then found something called sacred codes, and you can find an amazing book called The Manual of Sacred Codes, Numbers to Heal and Attract Everything You Want in Life, written by Diana Cerrone Atoya and Carolina Rodriguez Amaya. This amazing book describes that these particular codes had come through someone named Jose Gabriel Uribe Agesta, the man who channeled these sacred codes. They then started to record and document these codes that he had obtained, Uribe, and how to use them. And it becomes sort of manual on how light beings have provided different codes, helping us find our life purpose. And there's some uniquely subtle codes that are very powerful. For instance, codes for archangels, how to open roads, allows you to find newer opportunities. You can find greater miracles or unlock creativity. The codes are amazing, and I have found by using the codes in the same way, any of these codes, I focus on the code, I try to see it in my mind's eye. Sometimes I'll add light to it in my mind's eye, but just being around the code can be enough. So I started to integrate those codes, and I found them to be very powerful. I find the quantum healing codes to be the most powerful. I find the sacred codes to be the second most, and the Grabavoy are also powerful when I use them because they're so varied. There's so many different ones that are available that I can utilize. Another really amazing collection of codes can be found in a book called The Golden Codes of Shambhala. In particular, during the summer of 2006, Georgios Milonas Giome started to channel codes that came through. Many of these are powerful and easy to use. Many of the golden codes are easy to understand and utilize. The numbers aren't long, and it's not super complicated. So I've found myself using these on a regular basis. Each of these programs have their own protocols and instructions on how to use the numbers. I'm arguing that these codes are a longitude and latitude. These are coordinates in the multiverse. We're now entering into the new Earth reality. We're entering into a multiversal reality where you have access to infinite numbers of realities. At some point, we're going to have to start numbering them, almost like a phone number. If you want to go into this particular reality, you need to find the numeric code for that reality. It does not matter who is behind these codes. Some of the people that have come up with these codes may not be trustworthy or respectable, but the codes themselves have been used by multiple people and have been linked to certain states. And by accessing these codes, you're linking to the universal mind and you're accessing that particular state. I propose that we in the Reality Revolution create our own number code system, and we can document the multiverse in our own way. But right now we have these other codes that we can use, and the more that we learn from them, we can apply them. There is another resource that you can also use along these same lines, which is healingnumbers.info. It's a website that you can search. For instance, if you want to search quantum jump, it'll give you the healing code, and they look up quantum codes, Grabovoi codes, and Grabovoi numbers. And so there's an index that's been created through that website that provides the different numbers that are available to you to utilize. So what I'm trying to say is that it does not necessarily have to be magical or come from an angel, but a number code that's been used to link to different ideas can be utilized. Any and all of them. Start integrating ones that work for you. If they don't, then forget about it. For instance, on the healingnumbers.info website, it tells you how often these numbers have been used and searched for. For instance, unexpected wealth. The number is 175-17038. 98,016 people have found that number. Perhaps 98,000 people have written that number down on a piece of paper. They've meditated with that number. They've linked that number to the idea of unexpected wealth. They've imagined unexpected wealth with that number. So when you tap into that number, you're not only tapping into unexpected wealth, but you're tapping into the larger group mind that is thought and conceived of unexpected wealth. It becomes an energy stream that is magnified by the multiple number of people that are using it. I'm not saying that you should be using it every time you manifest. In fact, if you're like me and you don't like numbers, forget about it or experiment with it. Don't become obsessed with it. It shouldn't be the most important thing, but it is the beginning stages of our ability to fully access the multiversal reality that we are now entering into. If you're looking for love, what kind of love are you looking for? Romantic love? If that's the case, then you want to find the Grabavoy number for romantic love. You can also look at a channel called Grabavoy Numbers and Switchwords. It's a channel that features number of Grabavoy numbers, and they also claim to have great success with many of these numbers. For instance, 44,048 people have utilized or searched out the number for attract a specific person, which is 986115. That number in particular means that 44,000 people have been trying to attract a specific person and have imagined a specific person, have gone into the thought stream of attracting a specific person through that number. So let's access this number. Each of these numbers become a form of pendulum that you can use to aid yourself in the manifestation of whatever it is that you want. So then you think of the number. You bring the number up in your mind. You add light and energy to it. You focus on it. I found this to be very powerful because it could break down specific affirmations. For instance, large sums of money come to me easily, quickly. I started finding the Grabavoy code for large sums of money. I might start my affirmation off with, I'm happy and grateful. So I look up the code for happiness, the code for gratitude. I might say in an affirmation, in the best interest of all. I find that code so that it's in the best interest of all. For instance, I might find money from multiple sources. Well, there's a code for multiple sources of income coming in, so I focus on that. When I bring these numbers together, it creates a longitude and a latitude. And so when I focus on the affirmation, I also am focusing on a location. In my mind, it is a location, a place that my soul can go, a vibrational timeline that I can enter into that has all of these different elements to it. And for many of us, when we use abstract names and numbers, we can do that, but then perhaps a portion of our subconscious will make it a little more difficult to come about because of the unusually gray area that is integrated with words. When you start to use words, they can become variable, and one word that somebody says to one person can mean something to somebody and something else. When I say I want to receive money quickly, well, for some people that could mean a certain amount of time. That could mean, hey, I get some money within a month. Or for others, it could mean I get money within 3 months. And for others, it could mean I need to get money in hours. So what we're trying to do is be more specific with the words that we're using by integrating codes that are related to it from one of these different systems. The sacred code, the quantum healing code, the golden codes of Shambhala, any of these code systems can work. So go through the different code systems that work for you. And if one of them doesn't really resonate, or you look into it and you don't really like it, forget about it. I could certainly spend an entire episode on the numbers themselves and the meanings of different numbers, which would be fascinating. And perhaps I will do that because I would love to discuss 144,000 or 666 or pi 3.14 or the importance of 13. There's so many different interesting discussions that we can have around specific sorts of numbers. But what I'm trying to do is get better at creating realities. And one thing that we're going to do is create numerical identifications for the realities that we enter into. Because oftentimes what we're creating is a multiple set of realities. A reality that perhaps has love, that has good health, that has wealth. Perhaps we want to integrate those 3 codes. We can triangulate the location in the multiverse. And then in meditation, I can focus on those codes, but I'm not just trying to focus on some sort of magical power. Because when I do a quantum jump, I'm entering into a reality. I'm looking for the location of this thing. For instance, if I want to increase my testosterone level, there's a code for that. I would look for the code for that. I would declare an affirmation, but I would also look for the code for that particular reality. You can find a code for anything if you use healingnumbers.info or you get Grabavoy codes. In terms of Grabavoy codes, there are a ton of books available, and you might just get lost. There's so many codes that are available that I would recommend that you start with a book called Practical Guide to Using Number Sequences. And in that one, it has broken up into different categories such as health and success, emotional health, love and harmony. By doing that, it gives you a starting point, a basis for you to focus on these numbers. Here is an example of how I used Grabavoy numbers in my own particular situation that helped me. Now, I realize also when I use these numbers, I'm still working with my subconscious mind, and this allows me a greater level of belief or faith in whatever's working on, right? So I found the Grabavoy number for finding my ideal weight, which was 48,12412. And then there was a number for controlling the feeling of hunger, 317-493-18516. There's another number for metabolizing faster, 938-179. Controlling hunger, 317-493-18516. And I started to focus on these numbers just on a regular basis, maybe before I worked out, before I ate. And I dropped about 12 pounds in a very quick period of time. So I knew that something was working. I knew that this had aided my own reprogramming of my subconscious beyond just using an affirmation. I had not found using affirmations for reducing my weight to be effective. I started to experiment this with business and used it for a number of very subtle things, like being able to find canvases for my art business that I couldn't find, or to find paints that were unavailable to me, or ingredients or room, little things that I needed for my business, for my art business that I needed. I was able to use that helped me. I knew in my mind what I wanted, but it was very specific, and some people also have a difficulty in visualizing. I think this also helps for those who struggle with visualizing because it gives a clearer place for you to find it. You may find yourself visualizing better with these numbers because it's guiding the higher self into a specific place, a specific quadrant, a specific location that you can find, a specific energy stream that comes to you. By looking at that in particular, I felt that was powerful. I also started using immediate solution, which is 741, and then materialization, 8898, which means that what I'm imagining actually comes to pass immediately, very quickly. I found that by doing this, I started seeing my manifestations happen faster. Another interesting one, I wanted to access the Akashic. It was always kind of foggy to me, but I started using archives of the Akashic Soul Records, 581-47-18-18211, and then I would also use the quantum healing code for accessing the Akashic, which was 479-626-8554-9723. When I combined those together, I found a stream in which I could enter where I was easily able to access the Akashic record. I've created a couple of meditations, one that's more general and one that's specifically around the large sums of money meditation, using these quantum codes so that you can better tune in to those realities. If it doesn't work, forget about it. If you had a system that was working for you, don't let this create any sort of major or significant change. This is an added tool that you can use in your toolbox that may allow you to access different portions of the multiverse that were unavailable to you through a lack of imagination or inability of proper visualizing that can help you. It doesn't rule over all things. It's not the most important thing. It's simply another tool that you can use. Please put in the comments if you use any codes and tell me how they worked for you. Tell me if there's a code that you tried in particular that worked for you, that was powerful, that changed your life. I would love to share codes in the comments. So if there's codes that you've used, please use them. In particular, right now, the codes that I found that I've really found myself looking into a lot is 991 to clear away evil eye influences. That's in the golden codes. 1313, which is good luck synchronicity. 44 for manifestation. 4444 for manifestation and materialization. I find those a little bit easier to remember. And when I focus on those numbers, like 77 is sacred energies. 1012 is upliftment, elevation, dawn. 7777 is the shower of love. I might focus on these codes. I found them to be very powerful. Give yourself a code in one of these different systems, focus on it for a day, and see if it works. If you've struggled in the past trying to imagine or change your reality, this may be helpful to you. For many people that are not creative, looking at number codes may be more powerful. If your hemispheric link is more towards the left brain quantitative side of thinking, and that is your dominant side of thinking, you're not very good at being creative, you're not as right-brained as the more creative artist is, then these codes may be a workaround for you to help you to create the reality that you want. Go with the codes that work for you. Forget about the codes that don't. If it doesn't work for you, forget about it. All is well. This is just another toolbox. And I leave you with the Shambhala golden code for joy, which is 333. I want you to feel that joy. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I can write that down? If you see it, it gives you joy. What a powerful thing that we can do. And I also imagine the golden code for planetary enlightenment, heaven on earth, 444499. So please, let me know if there's any other code systems that you have heard of that you've used. I want to know about any code system. And let's put together a project where we create our own number code systems and gather them all together, and we can start to use them. Eventually, we're going to be able to look up like Google. I want to go into a reality where I do this particular thing. Maybe it's to be a track runner in the Olympics or to be a great novelist. And then you can log in the full number code and you can enter into that level of the matrix. The matrix itself is obviously built up of numbers, and we are trying to seek out the inner numbers that we can use to play around with the coding of the matrix. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.